He was the weakest ability holder in the entire city. 6 months later, he was the only one who controlled where monsters came back to life. His name was Liam. And on day 1, he had one shoe missing, 2 ribs screaming, a goblin chewing on his backpack like it owed him money. That was his heroic beginning. Not a sword, not a roar, a vending machine. When the gates opened over New Haven, everyone got a power. Flames, blades, beast forms, wings. Liam got a storage skill so weak it could barely hold 3 cans of soup. The first time he used it, a flashlight fell out and hit his own foot. People laughed so hard the monsters could have heard it. Big guilds ignored him. Mid guilds rejected him. Even a grocery store party told him he could carry bags, nothing more. So, he became the guy nobody looked at twice. He cleaned monster blood off barricades. He dragged broken carts through safe zones. He traded batteries and compeaches while heroes walked past in shining gear. New Haven had a word for people like him. Leftovers. One boy in particular made sure Liam never forgot that word. Cole moved like a lightning strike and smiled like he owned the air around him. His thin blades hummed with blue sparks whenever he killed something. Once he tossed Liam a broken dagger and told him not to cut himself. The crowd laughed. Liam laughed too, because laughing along hurt less than staying quiet. Cultivation systems in this world worked through something called gates. Tiers in reality that spilled monsters into the streets. Every wave that came through those gates was called a tide, and every tide got a number. New Haven had survived 6 tides already, each one worse than the last. Liam's storage skill was supposed to make hunting easier for people like him. Instead, it made him a punchline with a backpack. But there was one detail nobody noticed. Not even Liam himself, not yet. Every time his storage skill failed, it always failed in the exact same order. Flashlight first, then soup, then whatever he had grabbed last. It was not random. It was a pattern. And patterns are just locks waiting for a key. Liam did not know that yet. He only knew he was hungry and tired. He learned which alley stayed quiet after sunset. He learned which subway tunnel screamed before something crawled out of it. He learned to disappear before anyone remembered he existed. Then the 7th tide came, and disappearing was no longer an option. That night the moon turned red. The air smelled like burned metal. Every warning bell in New Haven rang at the exact same second. A gate opened under Eastern Avenue. Not above it, not beside it, directly beneath the street. The road folded inward like a paper cup, swallowing cars, lamps, and screaming people. Then thousands of claws began climbing out of the hole. The front lines shattered within minutes. Strong hunters ran toward glory. Rich guilds ran toward loot. Liam ran because something with 8 arms had decided he looked delicious. He cut through a clothing store, vaulted a mannequin, and immediately fell into a display of winter coats. For one glorious second he thought the coats had saved him. Then a bone dog crashed through the rack like a blender with legs. He grabbed the metal clothes rack and swung it with the courage of a terrified raccoon. It worked. The monster dropped. Liam ran before it remembered its job. Outside, the street had become a river of monsters. Spiders with human teeth crawled across buses. Ash giants stepped over rooftops like the buildings owed them rent. Liam ducked into a half-collapsed subway entrance and found a dozen survivors already hiding there. One of them looked at his empty hands and said, "Great, we got storage boy." Even with death screaming above them, people still found time to mock him. Then the ceiling cracked. Everyone ran deeper into the station. Liam tried to follow. A slab of concrete dropped between them and sealed the path shut. Dust filled his mouth. His flashlight flickered. Something howled behind him in the dark. He backed away until his heel hit empty air. The platform edge had already collapsed beneath his feet. He did not fall into the tracks. He did not fall into water. He fell through a broken dungeon wall that should not have existed at all. And he landed face first on a floor so wide it hurt to look at. For a moment, Liam thought he had died and woken up in a hospital. Then he heard breathing. Thousands of breaths, all around him, all at once. He lifted his head, and the chamber stretched farther than any subway tunnel he had ever seen. Wider than a stadium, brighter than noon, colder than a freezer. The floor was covered in glowing circles, and every circle held a sleeping monster. Goblin circles, bone dog circles, ash giant circles. Dozens of monster types, maybe hundreds. They were not dead. They were waiting. A goblin lay 3 feet away, snoring with its tongue out, a tiny knife resting by its hand. Liam froze. The goblin did not move. Then the silver lines beneath its circle pulsed, and the goblin's body blurred like a loading screen. A crack of blue light opened above it, and the goblin simply vanished upward. A second later, distant screaming echoed from somewhere far above the chamber. That was when Liam finally understood. Every monster killed above came back down here first. Every wave, every hunt, Every boss fight, all of it, funneled through this exact room. Everyone else was fighting the apocalypse from the front lines. Liam had fallen behind the walls entirely, and for the first time since the gates opened, nobody around him was laughing. He did the only brave thing available to him. He panicked so hard he kicked himself in the chin, then crawled behind a sleeping troll. The troll smelled like wet carpet and rotten onions. He had spent a month running from things like it, and now he was using one as furniture. That was when a bone dog materialized inside a nearby circle, layer by layer. Skeleton first, then tendons, then black fur, then teeth. A small crystal dropped beside its skull, shining like a coin made of moonlight. The dog did not wake. It just kept breathing, slow and steady. The crystal was right there. His storage skill could barely hold anything, but it could hold that. He reached out one shaking hand while the bone dog snored beside him. He touched the crystal, and it vanished into his storage without a sound. A calm little message floated across his vision as if he had not just robbed a nightmare. Monster core acquired. His heart tried to jump straight out of his chest. The bone dog circle pulsed once and launched the dog back into the city, empty-handed. Liam waited for lightning to strike him. Nothing happened. Outside, hunters risked their lives to earn drops after every kill. Down here, he had stolen the reward before the monster even opened its eyes. His fear did not disappear. It turned into something else entirely. Curiosity. And curiosity in a world full of monsters is either a death wish or the start of a scam. So, beautiful it becomes history. Liam stayed in that chamber for 6 straight hours, just watching. Goblins respawned every few minutes in the smaller circles. Bone dogs came in groups of 3. Bigger monsters took longer to wake. Every circle had a floating silver mark pointing toward a real street outside. Spawn points, all of them, mapped in the dust with pieces of broken tile. Circle 1 sent goblins to the subway stairs. Circle 4 sent ash giants to Eastern Avenue, which explained everyone's very bad evening. Then Liam found something even better hidden inside the silver marks. If he scratched a claw across a spawn mark, the circle hesitated. The monster inside slept for an extra 10 seconds. 10 seconds does not sound impressive until a creature can remove your spine like a zipper. Liam smiled in the dark, alone, and whispered one word to himself. Oh yes. By sunrise he had stolen 13 cores, 2 goblin knives and a strip of spider silk. His storage skill, the pathetic joke of New Haven, changed after the 10th core. It did not become huge. It became clever, stacking identical items into a single neat icon. He climbed out through the broken wall as the 7th tide finally faded above him. Cole stood on a ruined bus, wiping blood off his blades while a crowd cheered his name. He saw Liam crawl out of a subway entrance, covered in dust and slime. Storage boy survived, he said. Did you hide in a locker? The crowd laughed. This time Liam laughed too, but not because it hurt. Inside his storage were enough monster cores to buy Cole's coat, his blades, and his whole attitude. That afternoon he sold the smallest cores to a trader who never asked questions. Then he bought chalk, rope, smoke bombs, 5 backpacks, and the biggest sandwich he could find. The city believed the 7th tide had ended. Liam knew better. The monsters were already asleep beneath their feet, waiting to be sent back up. And now he had a claw sharp enough to decide exactly where they woke. The next few days turned him from a survivor into something else entirely. A thief, a researcher, a menace with excellent time management. He gave every circle a number and learned each monster's sleep cycle by heart. Touching a monster during deep respawn did nothing at all. Touching it during the final 3 seconds got him slapped across the room instead. He learned spider silk could be tied to silver marks and used like a leash. He learned that placing one monster's core beside another circle confused the launch path for a heartbeat. A heartbeat was more than enough. Goblins meant for a crowded shelter began appearing in empty parking lots instead. One spider nest that should have dropped onto a hospital roof landed somewhere far more deserved. It landed on a warehouse belonging to the leader of the Black Lantern Guild. Black Lantern did not call themselves criminals. They called it survival. Liam called it cowardice with better boots. 3 weeks earlier, their leader had cornered him and tossed his companions into the street. She told her people not to waste a blade on someone so pathetic. He remembered every single can. He watched from a rooftop as her people dragged stolen packs into the warehouse, laughing. Below his feet, 16 spiders slept in the white chamber, full silk sacks beside them. He tied their spawn marks together like shoelaces and carved a new launch direction. Then he whispered a single word into the dark. Delivery. The warehouse roof opened in flashes of blue light, and 16 spiders dropped straight into the party. The screams started cheerful, like people thought it was some kind of prank. Then the webbing hit, and the cheering stopped completely. Liam had studied their instincts. First they webbed anything moving. That gave him 40 seconds. He fired a flare, and Harper arrived with the city guard unit in under a minute. Harper was not a flashy hunter. She carried a shock baton and the exhausted patience of someone who kept the city alive on caffeine alone. She had given Liam a blanket after a wave once. She remembered his name. Her unit found the leader's people wrapped in silk beside stolen equipment from 6 different victims. The leader cut herself free just as Harper stepped through the door. For 1 second, Liam thought she would fight, then a spider sneezed, webbing into her face. He laughed so loud from the rooftop that a guard actually looked up. Next morning, everyone in New Haven was talking about the mysterious trap at the warehouse. Cole claimed it must have been some hidden tactical ability. Owen, the only trader who had ever helped Liam for free, was not so sure. Owen ran a shop built from a converted coffee stand, selling batteries and monster jerky. He stared at the fresh spider silk on his counter, then at Liam, and slowly grinned. "You found something stupid," he said. Liam handed over 3 more sandwiches and said absolutely nothing at all. That silence was the first real crack in the story New Haven believed about him. Owen became the second person to suspect that Storage Boy was no longer a joke. He did not know about the chamber yet, but he helped Liam sell without drawing attention. He split stacks of cores across buyers and found him gloves that resisted acid. Liam needed power that worked outside the chamber, because stealing drops meant nothing if he still fought like a wet paper bag. So he began building gear from stolen materials. Goblin knives became trap teeth. Bone dog fangs became carving needles. Spider silk became wire stronger than steel. And a blinking egg he had stolen, without thinking, became his greatest regret. On the 3rd day, it hatched inside his storage, and his skill screamed silently. It ejected a round baby slime directly into his soup bowl. Pale blue, the size of a basketball, to tiny black eyes full of pure criminal innocence. It ate the soup, then the bowl, then it tried to eat his sock. Liam named it Pip. It was probably the first ridiculous choice he ever made, and he stood by it. Pip had hatched from a stolen egg, so the chamber did not know where it belonged. Silver marks slid off its body completely, and when it duplicated small materials, the copies came out wrong on purpose. 1 fang became 2, but the second one was rubbery. Still, duplication was duplication, and by morning Liam had 200 rubber fangs and a pile of screaming goblin coins. He tied the screaming coins to spider silk tripwires around the city. The first person to step on one was Cole, following him into an alley uninvited. "People are saying you've come into money," Cole said, leaning against the wall. "Weak guys who suddenly get rich usually found something they can't protect." Liam looked at his lightning blades, then at the tripwire under his boot. "Careful," he said. "The ground is dramatic today." Cole smirked and stepped forward, and every screaming coin in the alley went off at once. The sound was 50 goblins learning opera inside a metal trash can. Cole's blade sparked into a puddle and blasted steam directly into his own face. For the first time, Storage Boy walked away and Cole did not laugh. The chamber became Liam's kingdom, one scratch at a time. He discovered layers beneath the white floor, sealed arches, and a chamber reserved only for bosses. He was not ready for that room yet, but he watched it carefully every day. Elite monsters slept lighter, and their circles carried thicker silver lines. He tried stealing a claw from a sleeping razor beast, and its eye opened halfway. His soul briefly packed a bag and left the building. He survived by throwing Pip directly at its face. The slime bounced off with a squeaky noise, and the beast went right back to sleep, confused. Pip was promoted that day from soup thief to tactical asset. A pack of flame apes had been terrorizing the North Market for weeks. Cole's guild announced they would clear the pack publicly, with cheers and cameras waiting. Liam announced nothing. He simply went below and waited beside their circles. Beside each sleeping ape, a fruit core formed, the seed that made their attacks explosive. He stole the seeds and slowed their launch with rubber fangs jammed into the cracks. Above, Cole's guild fought confused apes reaching for fruit they no longer carried. The crowd cheered Cole like he had become a legend on the spot. Below the floor, Liam whispered a quiet thank you for their labor. Then he got greedy and fed 1 stolen seed to Pip. Pip duplicated it into 7, and one of them came out cold instead of fiery. He planted the cold seed in an empty spawn circle just to see what happened. The next goblin absorbed it, grew a frost mustache, and sneezed an ice cube the size of a car. Above him, Cole's victory speech froze into a very literal disaster. A tiny frost goblin slid across the street, freezing everyone's boots to the pavement. People started calling it the Ice Gremlin Incident, and Liam laughed until Pip copied him. Then the red arch at the far end of the chamber pulsed once, hard. A boss had died somewhere above the city. Every sleeping monster in the room went completely silent at exactly the same moment. Heat rolled out from the crack in the wall, and black stone steps appeared, descending downward. From below came a heartbeat so massive it felt like the city itself was nervous. Liam should have left. Instead, he walked down the steps. The boss chamber was black glass, red lines, and golden chains wrapped around every circle. At the center, a massive serpent lay sleeping around a cracked stone pillar. Beside its head floated a scale as wide as his own chest. He wanted it so badly his hands started sweating before he even moved. He crept closer while Pip trembled on his shoulder, refusing to make a sound. He reached out and his fingers touched the scale. The serpent's eye opened. There are moments when you learn the exact weight of your bad decisions. This one weighed 30 tons and had fangs longer than his own legs. The serpent's gaze pinned him to the floor, and his body refused to move at all. His thoughts became a single long scream inside his own skull. Then his storage skill activated on its own, not to store the scale, but to store him. For half a second, Liam fell into his own pocket dimension. Then he popped back up behind the pillar as the tail smashed the spot where he had stood. The scale stayed in his hand. His storage skill had just saved his life. He sprinted up the stairs while the chamber rumbled violently behind him. The serpent's circle flared and launched it back into the city early, angry and missing a scale. Sirens started the second he burst through the broken subway wall. The river district lit up red, and the serpent landed in the middle of Cole's victory speech. The fight lasted all afternoon, and for once, Cole's lightning was not enough. The serpent smashed streets and nearly broke through to a shelter full of civilians. Liam watched from a rooftop, clutching the stolen scale, and this one was his fault. So he went back down, not to steal this time, but to fix what he had broken. The serpent's circle glowed empty, its launch mark pointed straight at the river district. He carved across it with the stolen scale, and the mark screamed without a sound. A new message opened in his vision: recall anchor unstable. He did not know what that meant. He jammed the scale in anyway. Above him, the serpent lunged at a line of wounded hunters near a shelter wall. Below, Liam grabbed the golden chains around its circle and pulled with everything he had. The chain burned straight through his gloves. Pip wrapped around his waist and pulled too. The serpent's roar echoed through the chamber as the chain snapped tight. Outside, the serpent froze mid-strike, and half its body dissolved into red sparks. It was not dead. It was being dragged backward through its own respawn path. Hunters watched the boss vanish from the street like reality had yanked it by the tail. In the chamber, the serpent slammed back into its circle, asleep again, heavily delayed. Liam collapsed on the floor, hands burned, lungs on fire, Pip squeaking beside him. A new feeling spread through his chest, one he had never felt before. Not fear, control. He had not just delayed a monster. He had pulled the boss backward through its own timeline. That night the city called it a miracle, and nobody knew whose it was. Owen looked at his bandaged hands and said, "You did something stupid again." Liam held up the serpent scale, and Owen's face went pale in the dark. "Liam," he said, "that is not shopping. That is robbery against nature itself." "Nature started it," Liam answered, and Owen leaned closer with a dangerous smile. "Can you do it again?" Liam smiled back. "I can do worse." With the scale, silver marks obeyed faster, and redirects became sharper than ever before. He learned to braid small monster paths together and release them all at once. He called it the monster slingshot, and the name did not sound as childish as the results. The first test fired 12 goblins into a dumpster. The dumpster lost. The third test was reserved for the leader of Black Lantern herself. She had rebuilt her guild faster than anyone expected and started demanding protection payments. Harper could never catch her, because she never attacked when guards were close by. So Liam became bait, walking through South Market carrying a pouch of fake cores. Her people followed him within 5 minutes, straight into an unfinished apartment tower. They surrounded him on the 3rd floor, while the leader stepped out from behind a pillar. "I knew the little rat had a shiny hole somewhere," she said, smiling. Liam glanced past her at a chalk line hidden under the dust. "Above you," he said quietly, and blue light opened in the ceiling. The slingshot fired, a packed ball of goblins, bone dogs, and one furious frost goblin. It dropped through 3 floors like a meteor made of very bad decisions. Goblins ran everywhere. Bone dogs chased the goblins. Sticky coins glued boots to the floor. The leader tried to leap at him, and the floor snapped upward like a trap net. She slammed into the ceiling and hung there, wrapped in silk, furious, and upside down. Harper's unit arrived 90 seconds later, exactly when Owen had promised they would. They found stolen goods, tied criminals, and the leader hanging with the coin stuck to her forehead. "What happened?" Harper asked, and Liam looked as innocent as chalk dust and slime allowed. "They attacked me," he said, and a screaming coin went off under someone's shoe. Harper sighed. "I am going to pretend that explains this." The leader glared as guards cut her down. "You're not weak," she hissed. "No," Liam said. "I'm worse. I'm petty." After that night, New Haven changed its opinion of him by exactly half an inch. Cole stopped calling him Storage Boy in public. which sounded almost painful for him. Liam's storage skill evolved again, after enough boss residue passed through it. If he stored a drop at the exact moment a circle pulsed, the item gained an echo. Pip could eat that echo and spit out a flawed but usable copy. He built a coat, gray and cheap-looking, the kind nobody wanted to steal. Hidden inside were overlapping rubber serpent scales and layers of spider silk thread. The first time a goblin stabbed him, the blade bounced off and hit the goblin instead. Every mistake made him stronger, and every monster the city killed gave him another visit below. Hunters trained by fighting, Liam trained by robbing the afterlife itself. The next wave came from West Park, a plant-type outbreak nobody wanted to face. Trees walked, flowers screamed people's names. Fire was a terrible idea near gas lines. Cole's guild prepared to attack from the front while Harper evacuated civilians. Liam went below, into a section of green circles blooming across the white floor. Their sap bulbs were the key, healing crystals that formed beside every sleeping plant monster. He replaced 20 healing bulbs with cold seeds wrapped in sticky coin paste. When the thorn walkers woke, the cold bonded to their roots and froze them where they stood. Cole's guild charged and ready for battle and found 20 trees stuck in place, shivering. Then the screaming flowers spawned, shouting their own weaknesses instead of releasing confession pollen. Cut the stem, one screamed. My roots are soft, another wailed. The hunters were so confused they forgot to be heroic for a full minute. Then a flower queen appeared in the lower ring, close to a real boss. Liam reached for her nectar crystal, and her hand snapped shut around his wrist. Her eyes opened, just enough. A vine wrapped his arm, thorns piercing through his coat. If she spawned while holding him, he had no idea what would happen to his body. He had 3 seconds, so he shoved his storage portal directly into her circle. It swallowed the vine holding him, just the part connected to his wrist. The queen launched upward, missing her healing crystal and one severed vine. Above, she erupted from the ground in the park, towering over the hunters. Liam wrapped the living vine around a pillar in the chamber and pulled with everything left in him. Every time she tried to attack, he yanked her off balance from below. Cole finally leapt and drove a lightning slash straight through her exposed core. The park exploded in golden petals while everyone above screamed his name. Liam lay on the chamber floor, covered in sap, holding the stolen crystal tight. His storage expanded again, this time adding something that made him sit up slowly. He could deploy stored material as a temporary anchor, a fake spawn point. He tested it on a single goblin, and it landed 3 feet above his fake circle. Blinking in confusion, temporary anchors changed him from a guy redirecting traffic into a guy building roads. He could not control monsters like puppets, but he could decide where they woke, and how late. The apocalypse had quietly turned into a board game, and he was the only one who could see it. His first public display came by accident during a ranking match at the central arena. The arena floor split open, and armored beetles crawled out in an endless loop. Cut one down, and another one crawled out of the same broken faucet seconds later. Liam slipped under the stands and dropped into the tunnel he had mapped days earlier. He built a maze of silk lines and rubber scales, then released the next wave. Beetles bounced off scale walls, slipped on cold ash, and formed a rotating wheel of fury. The wheel of beetles smashed through the parking lot and launched itself straight back into its own gate. The wave collapsed on itself, and a shock wave rolled across the frozen arena. Cole stared at the wrecked parking lot, knowing full well he had done absolutely nothing. That night, Cole followed him into an alley with no exit and finally demanded the truth. "Show me," he said, blade pointed. "Attack me," Liam answered. "Try not to kill me." Cole's pride made the decision before his brain could stop it, and he struck first. Liam opened his storage for half a second and swallowed the incoming blade whole. Then he released it behind Cole, handle first, straight into his own ribs. Pip dropped from the roof and wrapped around Cole's face like a wet helmet. Cole slipped on sticky coins and landed flat on his back in the alley. "Never announce victory," Liam said, "while the slime is airborne." Cole laughed once, sharp and unwilling. "You are ridiculous," he said. "If I tell you what I can do, you become a problem," Liam said. "If you keep chasing me, you become an experiment instead." Cole's jaw tightened. Liam held out a hand. "I can make openings. You can hit them. We both live." Cole stared at the hand, then took it, and that did not make them friends. It made them dangerous in exactly the same direction from that night forward. The next target was a hunting ground downtown, packed with high-value monsters. Every guild wanted it. Liam wanted the spawn map hidden underneath it. Dressed like a delivery worker, he pushed a cart straight into the contested zone unbothered. Nobody stopped him. That was the best part about being mocked for weeks. He found the first crack behind an underground ramp, a side artery of the main chamber. If the main room was the heart, this was a blood vessel running through the city. A dagger touched his back before he could finish exploring it. "Found you," The leader whispered, 3 of her people standing behind her. You embarrassed me twice, she said. That makes you interesting. Open it, she demanded, and Liam looked at the glowing artery, then at the dagger. Sure, he said, and pressed his palm to the wall. 27 sleeping goblins slid out of the crack like luggage from a broken carousel. Her smile died instantly. The goblins were harmless for exactly 3 seconds. 3 seconds was all Liam ever needed for anything in his life. Every goblin she cut down slid right back out of the wall 10 seconds later, increasingly annoyed. It was not a fight anymore. It was a subscription service for goblin problems. You control the return, she breathed, realizing the truth before anyone else did. Liam tossed a screaming coin into the air, and it shrieked loud enough for the whole district. Cole arrived first through a broken ramp in a flash of blue lightning. Harper arrived 30 seconds later with a full guard unit close behind her. The leader had raw bait tied to her own belt and stolen bags at her feet. He is controlling the monsters, she shouted, pointing straight at Liam. Everyone went quiet. Pip chose that exact moment to burp out a shoelace. Cole covered his mouth. Harper closed her eyes like she was praying for patience. The leader screamed and lunged, giving Harper every reason she needed to act. A shock baton cracked across her wrist, and Cole's blade pinned her dagger to the floor. Black Lantern was captured again, this time in front of half the downtown hunters. Liam handed Harper evidence, stolen gear, witness markers, and a recording Owen had secretly filmed. The leader was locked in a deep cell beneath the central station. By dawn, downtown belonged to Liam, quietly in ways nobody could see from the street. His power did not grow because the world rewarded him for anything. It grew because he kept touching things nobody else understood. The chamber taught him patterns, and the city kept giving him pressure to learn faster. Then the sky above New Haven opened into something nobody had ever seen before. Not a wave, not a gate, a spiral of black hole lined with purple fire. Every monster in the city stopped moving at once and turned toward it. Liam was in the chamber when it happened, and every circle went dark. Then the boss arch opened fully, and the lower chamber lit up in 5 different colors. Boss circles activated one after another. Monsters he had never seen before stirring in their sleep. They were being called by an old raid event the city had failed to clear weeks ago. The tower was collecting every boss tied to New Haven and preparing to launch them. A boss parade, an apocalypse conveyor belt, and the chamber was its staging area. Cole's voice cracked through the charm. What is happening? Bad news, Liam said. The tower is about to vomit bosses. Can you stop it? Cole asked. No, Liam said. But I can make it weird. The serpent woke first. Its launch mark pointed straight at a plaza full of civilians. Liam carved 3 delay rings and tied the chain to an empty riverbed instead. His gloves smoked. Pip expanded around his arms like a living slime brace. The serpent fought the redirect with real weight behind it. Real weight, not physical weight. He pulled anyway, and it burst from the dry riverbed, confused and furious. It did not miss, he said, sweating through the charm. I was extremely persuasive. The Flower Queen appeared upside down on a mall roof, roots flailing in the air. The Beetle Monarch charged in circles inside a maze he had rebuilt bigger and meaner. Every boss redirected away from civilians bought the city another precious minute. Every minute let Harper move people, and every minute gave Liam more materials. Then a black circle lit up, holding a hollow knight shaped from blades and smoke. Beside it formed a black shard, and Liam reached for it without thinking. The hollow blade grabbed his shadow, not his body, and pain ripped through him like bells. If it spawned while holding his shadow, he had no idea what would happen to him. He shoved Pip against the edge of his own trapped shadow, feeding it stolen material. Pip spat out a wobbly gray copy, and the boss grabbed that instead. He rolled free as the boss launched upward, dragging the fake shadow with it. Above, Cole struck the exposed shell, and Liam dropped it 12 feet into the pavement. Did you just trip a boss with your shadow? Cole laughed through the charm. Technically a counterfeit shadow, Liam answered. Keep up. Finally, Cole drove both blades into the crack, and the hollow blade burst into black smoke. Liam stole its shard before the smoke even settled to the ground. His storage skill unfolded a black door. Shadow anchor acquired. Any shadow touching marked material could now become a spawn redirect point for a few seconds. The boss parade should have crushed New Haven. Instead, it became his promotion exam. A winged horror dove toward a shelter, and he opened an anchor in its own wing shadow. It reappeared above the river, where 3 guild leaders struck it out of the sky. By the time the spiral over the tower reached its final stage, New Haven had survived 12 bosses. Cole was exhausted, bleeding, and grinning like a lunatic. Liam was worse. His storage space felt too full, like he had swallowed a warehouse made of ghost. Then the final circle activated, not in the boss chamber, but beneath it. A circle larger than a city block glowed under everything, bright as a trapped moon. A monster slept inside it, No, a calamity slept inside it. A body like a dragon, wings covered in stone eyes, a tail wrapped in a broken crown of towers. A name appeared in his vision, quiet and cold, heavy enough to weaken his knees. Graveworm. Its launch mark pointed to the heart of New Haven. The whole city, not one district. Cole's voice crackled thin through the charm. Tell me that thing is the end of it. It has buildings stuck to its tail, Liam answered, and Cole went silent. Can you move it? Cole asked. Liam looked at the white gold launch lines locked into every artery. No, he said. Then he remembered every person who had ever laughed at him. Every shadow anchor in the city, every fake spawn point, every stolen spawn corridor. I can make it dizzy, he said, and opened his entire storage at once. A miniature routing room unfolded around him, silver pots spinning in the air. Every piece of nonsense he had ever stolen poured out in controlled streams. He fed the core of it to Pip, and Pip's well to the size of a house. Materials duplicated, flawed but numerous, spreading across the Graveworm's launch lines like a flood. He gave the chamber thousands of fake arteries instead of the one it wanted to use. The launch mark flared, confused for the first time since he had found this room. Stone eyes opened one by one across its wings as the Graveworm began to wake. Cole, he said into the charm when something enormous appears, hit the glowing parts. What are the layers? Cole asked. Panic, theft, violence, and slime, Liam answered. The Graveworm launched, and for 1 second all of New Haven went completely silent. Then portals opened everywhere at once, a horn here, a wing there, a claw somewhere else. It did not spawn in one place, it flickered across the city like a broken projector. People screamed. Hunters attacked anything that appeared for even half a second. Below, Liam controlled the chaos, jamming rubber scales into every threatened launch line. Every time the chamber tried to correct its route, Pip vomited flawed copies to confuse it further. Blood ran from his nose, and he laughed anyway, because the Graveworm had made one mistake. It had entered his room. He gathered every delayed monster he had saved that day and braided their launch paths into one spiral. If the Graveworm was too big to move, he would use the whole city's monsters as a hammer. Thousands of small monsters launched through shadow anchors, straight into the flickering pieces of the calamity. It looked like the city had fired every nightmare it owned back at the biggest one. The Graveworm tried to complete its spawn in the central plaza, and Liam felt the lines converge. He stopped trying to keep it scattered and opened every anchor beneath the abandoned stadium instead. Every ridiculous trap he had built for lesser enemies became one single mouth. The Graveworm crashed through the sky in pieces that snapped together at the very last second. It slammed into the arena floor, bounced off stacked rubber scales, and kept bouncing. A calamity that could split a city in half bounced like the world's angriest ball. You bounced it, Cole laughed through the charm, wild and disbelieving. Focus on the glowing parts, Liam answered. I am, but you bounced it. The stadium became a blender of monsters, hunters, traps, and lightning all at once. Cole ran up its neck, sparks tearing behind him, blades crossed over the largest stone eye. Liam shoved a delayed slime wave straight into its throat as it opened to roar. The roar came out as a wet hiccup instead, and Cole struck. The eyes shattered, the Graveworm convulsed. Its launch lines snapped all at once. Power flooded back toward Liam, far too much for one storage skill to hold safely. He could let it explode randomly across the city, or absorb it and become paste. He chose the stupid option and opened his storage to swallow the entire backlash. For one moment, he was inside every path, every circle, every sleeping monster in New Haven at once. He pulled the remaining energy inward, wrapped it in silk, cooled it with ash, and locked it away. The Graveworm collapsed, not dead completely, cracking apart into stone, bone, and black dust. Its core floated above the stadium, pulsing like a second heart, trying to return home. Liam reached through the broken launch line and stole it mid-respawn, warm and heavy in his hands. His storage skill expanded one final time that night, not into a bigger box, into a command table. Spawn routes unfolded in his mind like glowing threads, delays, anchors, recalls. All easier to reach. He was still the guy who once hid behind a vending machine with one shoe missing. But now, beneath the city, the apocalypse finally had a control room, and he had the key. When he climbed out of the stadium tunnel after sunrise, the city looked like it had survived being chewed by a god. Cole sat on a broken wall with slime still in his hair and no smirk left on his face. You were under it all, he said. Most of it, Liam answered, too tired to pretend otherwise. Cole stood and bowed his head, not low, not dramatic, just enough. New Haven lives because of you. Harper approached next, coat torn, baton cracked, expression impossible to read completely. I do not need to know everything today, Liam, she said. But I need to know one thing. Are you on our side? The question was simple. The answer was not. I'm on the side of people who are tired of being prey, he said. That works for today, Harper answered, and for today. That was the important part. The city celebrated Cole as the Storm Blade of New Haven for 3 straight days. Nobody called Liam anything official, and honestly, that suited him just fine. But rumors spread anyway, of a hidden hand turning monsters against criminals in the dark. He kept working. The Graveroom Corps let him stabilize anchors for far longer than before. Cole found the subway crack one night, exactly as Liam had known he eventually would. This is where they come back, Cole said quietly, staring into the white chamber. You could have destroyed every guild in the city, he said. Probably, Liam answered. I was cruel to you, Cole finally admitted. Yes, Liam said. I'm sorry, Cole said. Apology accepted, Liam answered. But tell anyone without asking. And I spawn a frost goblin in your shower. A few days later, Harper learned the truth too, walking the white chamber in total silence. These things kill our people, she said. If there is a way to take their teeth first, take them. Oh, and learn last, mostly because he already knew too much from guessing correctly for weeks. He walked in, stared at the sleeping monsters, and whispered, the world's worst warehouse. Sharing the secret should have made the chamber feel smaller. Instead, it felt less lonely. Liam built what Owen called the monster vending machine, turning respawn windows into steady supplies. Spider silk nets for shelters, cold ash grenades for guards, fang traps that disabled without killing. New Haven grew harder to kill, and people started asking where the materials came from. Owen told them ethical monster recycling, and nobody understood, but the phrase sounded responsible. Cole trained with him in secret, learning to read weird openings instead of swinging blind. Harper trained him differently, running street drills where a child always ran the wrong way. The drills changed his style. He stopped building traps that only punished enemies. He started building fields that protected idiots, and in New Haven that was a full-time job. A triple gate open next, 3 colors, 3 monster types spawning at the exact same time. The old Liam would have run below and puppeted the whole battlefield alone until his nose bled. The new Liam sent rolls. Cole took the silver gate. Harper controlled the evacuations. He turned the 3 streams against each other, giving each monster type the wrong enemy to chase. Within 20 minutes, the entire wave migrated into a pit outside the city on its own. Hunters arrived expecting a desperate battle and found a monster soup pit bubbling like angry stew. New Haven was no longer surviving wave by wave anymore. New Haven was learning. He had not become a king. He had become infrastructure, invisible, annoying, essential. And honestly, that suited him more than any crown or title ever could have. But legends attract idiots, and idiots love wearing someone else's face for profit. A gang painted a fake symbol across a theater and demanded tribute in the Hidden Hand's name. Liam dropped into the chamber and turned the closest scheduled monsters into pure theater. Goblins wrapped in curtain fabric rolled through the door on cue, screaming coins glued to their backs. An ogre wearing a stolen red curtain like a cape fired a harmless beam straight at the ceiling. The gang broke instantly, slipping on slime patches he had planted near every exit. No, you do not. He projected through 12 screaming coins at once, cold and low. Harper's team arrived. The criminals were tied in beetle silk, and the fake symbol vanished by morning. A quieter crew tried next, kidnapping rookies and claiming the Hidden Hand had abandoned the weak. Liam tracked them through spawn residue clinging to a stolen necklace made of wolf claws. He walked into their arcade hideout wearing his most useless expression, exactly as Liam the porter. 100 copied goblin spoons spilled from his torn bag, and hundreds more knives rained from the ceiling. The crew shouted, the rookie stared, and Liam raised both hands. Please stay calm, he said. This is the gentle version, he added, right before a net launcher bounced everyone into a fountain. By morning, the story had changed once more. Whispers of a weak porter walking into a nest with spoons. Guild leaders grew uncomfortable, and discomfort makes powerful people show their teeth. One guild set a kill zone directly above a nest of eels he had delayed for structural reasons. If they fought there, the eels would spawn beneath the shelter's foundation and chew through the supports. He had to stop them without ever revealing the chamber existed beneath their boots. He launched Pip into their smoke machine, and it exploded into pink glitter, multiplying into four wobbling copies. Then the deepest signal pulsed again, low, slow, coming from somewhere beyond the black glass wall. The Graveroom core answered inside his storage with a heartbeat of gold light. All the little circles dimmed at once, every sleeping monster turning its head toward the same wall. He crossed into the deepest chamber and studied the cracked grave circle in complete silence. He followed the pulse through the lower room, past every boss circle he had ever scarred. The chamber curved inward like a closed eye, and behind broken gold chains he found another wall. Not white stone, not black glass, transparent crystal, and behind it, hundreds of floating doors. Each door was marked with a different city skyline, some bright, some flickering, some cracked open. One far door had a line of red light crawling along its edge like something trying to get in. He placed his hand on the crystal, and a route appeared in his mind, far beyond New Haven. Other cities had respawn rooms of their own. Other apocalypses had back doors just like his. And some of them, he realized with a cold chill, were already bleeding into each other. He should have been terrified. He smiled instead, exhausted, and already planning his next 27 cheats. Owen's voice crackled through the charm. Liam, please tell me you are not touching anything shiny. Define touching, he answered, and Owen groaned loudly on the other end of the line. He pressed the serpent scale against the crystal, and a tiny silver scratch appeared across it. The far red door pulsed in response, and something enormous moved behind it in the dark. He was done being the guy who ran from monsters, hiding behind vending machines and broken carts. He was the guy waiting in the room where they came back, calm and ready at the door. And if the apocalypse wanted a second round, it was going to have to respond through him first. He did not know it yet, but the pulse behind that red door had already noticed him watching. Weeks passed, and the black rain came without warning, dropping from a cloudless sky over New Haven. Droplets struck rooftops and rolled upward instead of down, crawling like tiny living shadows. Monsters killed during the squall did not return cleanly. They came back faster and meaner. Criminals used the confusion to rob shelters while every hunter was busy above ground. Cole took the east bridges. Harper held the central shelters. Owen fed route calculations through the charm. Liam dropped into the chamber, and for the first time, the white room did not feel asleep. It felt sick, black droplets crawling along the circles like ants across dying skin. A rare circle he had never touched held a cathedral manus, blade arms folded like prayer. If the corruption reached it, the manus would launch as a flying execution machine over the city. He sprinted toward it, and a crawling ribbon of black rain wrapped around his ankle mid-step. Cold shot up his leg, and for 1 second the chamber blurred into his very first day here. Then Pip bit his finger hard, and he stumbled straight into the mana circle just in time. He slapped both hands onto the circle and dumped every preset he had ever saved into one formation. The circle flashed like a festival, and the cathedral manus launched. So, did he? He burst above New Haven riding the back of a half-delayed cathedral manus in the black rain. Why are you in the sky? Cole's voice exploded through the charm, half laughing, half panicking. Temporary promotion, Liam answered, clinging to its glowing neck as it screamed forward down the avenue. He turned the manus into transportation, bending its flight path with the maze crystal buried in his glove. Frost carpets bloomed on the road below. Smoke carters split the monster packs apart cleanly. People looked up and saw him riding a stained glass monster through black rain, throwing traps from thin air. That was the moment the city stopped thinking of him as a rumor whispered in alleys. The manus bucked hard above the plaza, wings flaring black, about to dive straight into the shelter. He had one move left, pouring a jar of black rain over the manus's own respawn mark. The corruption hit 8 conflicting presets at once, and the manus simply forgot what it was. It folded its wings, sneezed glitter, and dropped straight into a fountain he had rigged as a trampoline. Cole arrived like a thunderbolt and struck its exposed core the moment it bounced back up. By sunrise, the squall ended, the shelters held, and every guild leader had watched him fall from the sky. Nobody called him leftover anymore. Some tried master. He hated that. Some tried lord. Worse. Harper settled it during a public briefing, calling him simply Liam, no title, no mask. The sound of his own name hit harder than any crown, because it no longer came with laughter. Power kept growing stranger. A tiny beetle circle appeared, holding a creature shaped like a guide. Inside its clear shell floated a miniature map of New Haven, a pathfinder for every wave. This was the reason past waves had sometimes moved with cruel, unnatural accuracy toward the weak. He bent its roots gently, curving shelter pots into empty parking towers instead of crowded streets. The next wave proved it worked, goblins sprinting into fake bait instead of real people. Enough monsters missed their targets that civilians began returning to the streets to breathe again. And when people finally breathe, they start looking around at exactly who protected them. Then the deepest pulse behind the crystal wall answered back for the very first time. It was not a scream this time. It was a knock. Slow, deliberate, coming from somewhere beyond the red door with the crawling light along its edge. The Gravern core inside his storage answered with a heartbeat of gold, and every circle dimmed. Liam stood alone in the white chamber, surrounded by harmless bodies of things that once terrified him. He should have called the others immediately. Instead, he pressed his palm to the crystal wall. A tremor ran through the entire chamber, and one of the floating doors cracked wider open. Something pushed against it from the other side, patient, enormous, and completely unbothered by his presence. Harper's voice cut through the charm, sharp with static. Liam, report your position right now. He looked at the crystal at the doors, at the red light bleeding through the crack. Trouble, Harper answered before he could even finish forming the sentence in his head. The knocking stopped. For a moment the chamber held its breath along with him. Then a single word appeared in his vision, calm and polite, the way it always did. Connection established. Every response circle in New Haven flickered at once, and Pip pressed itself flat against his boot. Cole's voice broke through next. Liam, whatever you are doing, stop doing it right now. I'm not doing anything, he said, and for once that was completely true. The chamber was doing it to him. He backed away from the crystal wall, and the crack along the red door slowly sealed shut. The pressure lifted all at once, like a held breath finally releasing across the entire city. Owen exhaled through the charm. Please tell me that's the end of the shiny wall problem. Not even close, Liam admitted, staring at the sealed door with a strange kind of calm. Something out there had knocked, and something in here had answered without asking his permission. He climbed back through the layers of the chamber, past the boss circles, past the sleeping monsters. Above ground, the city was quiet, ordinary, unaware of the doorway humming beneath its foundations. He found Cole and Harper waiting at the broken subway wall, both of them tense and silent. What did you find down there? Harper asked, arms crossed, refusing to look away from him. A hallway, Liam said, behind the gates, connecting every city that ever had one of these rooms. Cole's face went pale under the streetlight. That means New Haven was never alone in this. It means every disaster that ever hit another city might already be listening at our door, Liam said. Harper was quiet for a long moment before she finally spoke again, steady as always. Then we prepare, she said. That's all this city has ever known how to do. Liam looked at his own hands, still faintly glowing with the residue of the crystal wall. He was not the weakest ability holder anymore. He had not been for a long time. He was the person standing between New Haven and every door that had not opened yet. He thought about the first day, the vending machine, the goblin chewing his backpack for fun. He thought about every laugh that had followed him through alleys and grocery store parking lots. None of that mattered anymore. What mattered was the hum behind the crystal, patient and waiting. He was done being the punchline in someone else's story about the apocalypse. He turned back toward the sealed wall one last time before climbing out into the night. Whatever comes through that door, he said quietly, it responds through me first. Owen's voice crackled one more time through the charm, softer than usual. You good, Liam? Liam smiled in the dark, alone with Pip and a chamber full of sleeping monsters. Never better, he said, and for the first time in a long time, he meant it completely. The days that followed felt almost peaceful, which in New Haven counted as a small miracle. Cole trained beside him without complaint, learning to trust openings he could not see coming. Harper folded the chamber's warnings quietly into every drill she ran with the city guard. Owen kept building gadgets from stolen materials, naming every single one against Liam's wishes. Pip stole buttons, hats, and the occasional sandwich, and nobody had the heart to stop it. The rumors of the hidden hand faded into something steadier, something the city simply trusted now. Not a savior, not a king, just the person who made sure the worst things landed somewhere empty. The crystal wall stayed sealed, but Liam checked it every few nights out of habit. Sometimes he heard the faint knock again, distant, patient, and he answered it with silence. Not yet, he would whisper to the dark, and the knocking always seemed to understand. New Haven rebuilt its broken streets while nobody above ever fully understood what waited underneath them. That suited Liam fine. Some doors are safer when only one person holds the key. He walked through the market one evening, and the same vendors who once ignored him waved. He bought noodles, sat on a rooftop, and watched the city glow under an ordinary sky. Pip curled up beside him wearing 3 hats stacked on top of each other, perfectly content. Somewhere below them both, thousands of monsters slept in glowing circles, waiting for their turn. And for the first time since the gates opened, Liam was not afraid of what came next. The story of New Haven's seventh tide became a legend told in shelters and classrooms alike. People spoke of hunters who fought at the front, and of a hidden hand that fought underneath. Cole became the storm blade the city needed, but he never forgot who steered the storm. Harper never stopped running her drills, because she knew disasters do not wait for anyone to rest. Owen's workshop grew into the busiest shop in the district, guarded by slime alarms and goblin pans. And Liam, the boy once called Leftover, became something the city had no proper word for. He was not a hunter. He was not a hero standing on rooftops for applause. He was the reason bad things kept landing in empty lots instead of crowded shelters. He never asked for statues, titles, or a seat at any guild's table of honor. He asked only for one thing, that the people around him stop being afraid to sleep. On quiet nights, he still returned to the White Chamber, walking rows of familiar sleeping monsters. He knew every circle by number, every drop by weight, every sound each creature made when waking. The chamber that once terrified him had become the safest room he had ever known. Because down there, nothing surprised him anymore. Down there, he finally understood the rules. Above ground, the world still felt unpredictable, loud, and occasionally covered in slime for no reason. But that unpredictability no longer scared him the way it once had, hiding behind vending machines. He had learned that fear was not something to run from forever without ever turning around. Fear was information, a signal pointing toward whatever needed to be understood next. The boy who once flinched at every shadow now built anchors inside them, without hesitation. The boy who once carried other people's gear now carried the weight of an entire city's nights. He did not carry it alone. That had never been the plan, not really. Cole stood at the front. Harper held the center. Owen kept the supply lines running. And Pip, ridiculous and loyal, remained the strangest tactical asset New Haven had ever produced. Together they had turned a city on the edge of collapse into a city that refused to fall. Not because the monsters stopped coming. They never stopped coming, not once, not really. But because someone had finally learned to meet them exactly where they returned to life. The chamber beneath New Haven kept humming, patient, endless, full of things still waiting to wake. And somewhere far beyond the crystal wall, other cities held their own quiet rooms, their own respawn hearts. Liam did not know what waited behind every door in that hallway of light. He only knew that whatever it was, it would have to go through him first. That thought no longer frightened him the way it once would have, weeks and months ago. It steadied him, the same way a locked door steadies a house against a storm outside. He thought of the goblin chewing his backpack on that very first terrible night. He almost laughed remembering how small his world had felt behind the vending machine. Now his world stretched beneath an entire city, silver lines running like veins under every street. He was still just Liam, still eating noodles to fast, still arguing with a slime over hats. But he had also become something the apocalypse never planned for, a thief in its own house. Every monster that fell in New Haven now fell, knowing it might not land where it aimed. Every criminal who tried to use fear as a weapon learned fear could be redirected to. And every civilian who once walked past him, without a glance, now knew exactly who he was. Not a savior wrapped in light, a quiet hand keeping the worst of the dark contained. The city slept easier because somewhere below its foundations, someone never fully slept at all. That was the cost he had chosen, and he never once regretted choosing it. On the anniversary of the 7th tide, New Haven held a small, quiet gathering near the shelters. No parades, no speeches, just survivors standing together in a place that had almost taken everything. Cole stood beside Harper, both of them scanning the crowd out of pure old habit. Owen's soul dumpling shaped badly like a mysterious hero with dramatic hair. And people bought them anyway. Liam stood near the back, unnoticed on purpose, watching the city breathe without fear for once. A child ran past him laughing, chasing a friend through streets that used to scream every night. He watched them disappear around a corner and felt something settle quietly in his chest. This was the part nobody ever told stories about. The ordinary peace built from extraordinary effort. No cameras captured it. No guild claimed credit for it. It simply existed, fragile and real. He touched the serpent scale hidden inside his coat, still warm from years of use. Somewhere beneath his boots, thousands of monsters slept, waiting for a call that might never come today. And if it did come, he would be ready, the way he had trained himself to be. Not because he wanted another fight, but because someone always had to stand at that door. He had decided, quietly and without ceremony, that the someone would be him. Pip climbed onto his shoulder, wearing all 3 hats at once, utterly pleased with itself. Liam laughed softly, the sound easy now, nothing like the forced laughter of his very first weeks. Cole caught his eye from across the crowd and gave a small, genuine nod. Harper raised a cup of something that was definitely not coffee in his general direction. Owen shouted something about a new invention that immediately worried everyone within hearing range. It was, all things considered, a perfectly ordinary evening in an extraordinary city. And ordinary evenings were exactly what Liam had fought so hard to give New Haven back. Later that night, he returned to the chamber one final time before the day fully ended. The white floor stretched out before him, familiar now in a way it had never been at first. He walked between the circles slowly, checking each one out of habit more than necessity. The crystal wall sat quiet in the deepest room, its doors dim, its knocking silent for now. He pressed his palm against it gently, and nothing answered back tonight. Good, he thought. Let it stay quiet a little while longer. The city above deserved a few nights without the weight of what waited underneath it. He climbed back through the broken subway wall and stepped out into cool night air. The stars over New Haven were visible for the first time in longer than he could remember. No red moon, no warning bells, Just an ordinary sky over a city still standing. He walked home slowly, Pip riding on his shoulder, humming some tune it had stolen from a radio. Tomorrow there would be more monsters, more drills, more ridiculous inventions from Owen's workshop. There would be more doors to watch, more silver lines to trace, more patterns to learn. But tonight, there was only this, a quiet street, a full stomach, and a city that had survived. He had started this story hiding behind a vending machine, certain the world had no place for him. He ended this chapter of it standing guard over every door the world had left unguarded. Not because destiny chose him. Nothing about his storage skill had ever looked like destiny. He chose himself, one stolen core, one scratch mark, one ridiculous slime at a time. That was the real difference between the weak and the ones who eventually stopped being weak. Not power granted from above, but patience, curiosity, and the refusal to stay where he was placed. New Haven had called him leftover once, a word meant to make him small and forgettable. He had turned that word into a foundation and built an entire hidden city underneath it. Every monster that returned now returned into a room that understood it better than it understood itself. Every criminal who tried to weaponize chaos learned that chaos already belonged to someone else here. Every hero who stood in the light owed a debt to someone who stayed in the shadows. And every ordinary person walking home safely owed nothing they would ever fully understand or repay. That was fine with Liam. He had never wanted the debt acknowledged out loud. He only wanted the streets quiet, the shelters full, and the children running without fear. He got exactly that, one impossible night at a time for as long as the city needed him. The chamber beneath New Haven still hums tonight. Silver lines glowing beneath every sleeping street. Somewhere in that white and endless room, a boy who was once called weak checks the circles one more time. He is not looking for danger tonight. He is simply making sure the danger stays asleep. Above him, an entire city breathes easily, never fully knowing how close it came, how many times. Below him, a slime with 3 hats dreams badly duplicated dreams beside a pile of stolen coins. And somewhere far beyond a sealed crystal wall, something patient waits its turn, quietly for now. New Haven survived because one boy refused to stay invisible after the world decided he should be. He turned mockery into method, weakness into leverage, and an apocalypse into something he could finally read. The gates had once made him feel like nothing. In the end, he made the gates answer to him. That is the story New Haven tells now, quietly. In shelters and classrooms and rooftop noodle stands. Not a story about the strongest blade, though the blade mattered plenty in its own right. A story about the one who understood that every ending is also somebody else's beginning. Every monster killed becomes a monster waiting to return, unless someone controls where it lands. Every villain defeated becomes a villain planning their next move, unless someone watches the doors. Liam watched the doors. That was the whole secret, simple enough to say in one sentence. He watched, he learned, he stole, he built, and he never once stopped being afraid. He simply decided fear would not be the thing that made his choices for him anymore. That decision, more than any storage skill or stolen scale, was the real power he found. New Haven stands tonight because a leftover boy refused to be thrown away by his own story. The vending machine is still there, dented, forgotten, exactly where he once hid from a goblin. He walks past it sometimes now, and it makes him smile instead of flinch. The city he protects will never fully know his name the way it knows Cole's. He is fine with that. Some guardians are meant to be felt, not seen. Somewhere below the streets, the chamber keeps its endless watch, and so does he. The weakest boy in New Haven became the reason New Haven gets to keep waking up. And every morning the city rises, safe, unaware, and alive, is proof enough of that. Liam never needed a crown, because he had already become the foundation the whole city stood on.